All right, welcome back. The IndyCar Show, Burnout Sports, burnoutsports.com. Luke Edwards, Tony Donahue. We're about halfway through the IndyCar season, which is crazy to think about because it feels like just yesterday we were talking about St. Pete. We get to the craziness that is the month of May, and now we are at the halfway point. Elkart Lake, Wisconsin, Road America last week. Josef Newgarden, your winner. Next week, we go to Mid-Ohio. It's been a crazy, fast-paced 2022 so far, Luke.
Yeah, it was crazy, the correlation of, Will Power winning in Detroit and kind of getting that redemption the previous race where he was leading at the end of the race, red flag, couldn't get the car restarted. Newgarden last year was leading on the final restart, car had no go, couldn't get in gear, had some sort of issue that took him out, ended up finishing way down in the teens. He gets redemption again with a really solid, both those guys had real solid runs back to back. So Newgarden gets his redemption and just really dominated that race, which we can get more into. But it started shaping out, I think, the run for the championship. We see Ericsson take the lead back after one race of losing it, keeping that Indy momentum, getting a podium and sort of a dramatic race for him. And I think we saw some teams that have started to turn the corner as a whole in Road America. So there's a lot to tear into.
Yeah, and we've got Mid-Ohio coming up. There's a test from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway coming up on Thursday from the road course we can talk about as well. Road America, I was there. Incredible racetrack. If you've never been there, there's so many great sight lines. As a fan, you can get up close and personal. You can get within 8 feet with no fence in front of you. At some points of the track, you walk around. It's literally a racetrack in a state park, basically out in the forest. I absolutely loved it. We saw a great Indy Lights race that was red flag due to Christian Vogel getting into the fence. Then my guy Christian Rasmussen gets the win, and then Josef Newgarden, like you said, redemption. Alexander Rossi gets the pole. Rossi's been hot. He's had an average finish of 6th in the last 6 races. We'll talk about that. But like you said, Josef Newgarden gets it done. We had some craziness at the restart. After the start of the race, you had Will Power and Devlin DeFrancesco. You had Marcus Ericsson colliding with Alex Palou. Luke, you know this. You don't want to take your teammate out, especially when you're both are battling for the championship. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall after that race for Chip Ganassi, sitting down Marcus Ericsson, your Indianapolis 500 champion, and then looking at Alex Palou, your defending IndyCar champion, and saying, look, boys, we can't have that. But it seemed like all is well now moving on inside of the Chip Ganassi Racing stable.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where Road America is a track of late moves. You have to dive bomb, you have to use those braking zones, and that's what Marcus Ericsson did. And as the driver being passed, you're trying to time that undercut. You're trying to dive back underneath him and hope that he outbroke himself and goes a little bit wide on exit. Unfortunately, they just made contact. And these Indy cars, for the most part, are pretty tough. We see them hit into each other, sometimes even glance off of a wall and be fine. In this case, it just took him out of the race. So Palou, all the way down to 5th in the points. He's been right there the entire season. Marcus Ericsson climbs back up with a somewhat healthy lead this time around. It's not a shoestring lead like he had after the 500, and that top 3 is just real tight. There's just over 30 points separating 1st to 3rd from Ericsson all the way back to Newgarden. But we saw some tough days too. I mean, where would Pato O'Ward be if he hadn't had a DNF right at the end, causing that last restart?
Yeah, and like you said, and what we were talking about, same with Alex Palou, who lost a lot of valuable championship points. Will Power didn't have the greatest of days. But again, shout out to Marcus Ericsson. You and I talked about him a few weeks ago. Is he a championship contender? Now that he's won the Indianapolis 500 and got those double points, can he compete week in and week out for podiums and top 5s, which is what you need to win the title? And so far, so good. He has. But again, Josef Newgarden, look, this guy wins the $1 million, $500,000 for him and his crew, $500,000 to charity. I think he can do it again because I got a feeling he's going to win at Iowa. When he came into the season, I said, I think one thing is for sure, Josef Newgarden will win one of those 2 races at Iowa. We know he's been good on different tracks like Mid-Ohio, like Gateway, where he has a win, Laguna Seca. You know that he wants to win badly on the streets of Nashville, which is basically now his home track. So, honestly, here's what I'm going to say right here as we're halfway through the season. It's Josef Newgarden's championship right now, and everybody else is going to have to go get it. And it's going to have to go through Josef because week in and week out, Toronto, Mid-Ohio, Gateway, Iowa, Laguna Seca, Indianapolis Motor Speedway Road Course, again, Portland, I think your remaining tracks. He's good at all of those tracks and has won at almost all of them as well. So I have a feeling, Luke, you're in agreement with me when I say that somebody is going to have to get out there and take this championship from Josef Newgarden.
Well, Mid-Ohio is a great place to do it because the last, let's see, all the way back to 2014, every driver since then, I think that's 9 drivers. Yes, 9 drivers. You have Scott Dixon, Graham Rahal, Simon Pagenaud, Josef Newgarden has won it twice in the last 9 races. Scott Dixon has won it twice in the last 9 races. Colton Herta, Will Power, and Rossi, they have all won this race. So I think it's going to be a really, really tight race. You're going to have to be on the right strategy, and your pit stops are going to have to be perfect. Look at what happened with Rossi's pit stop in Elkart Lake in Road America. Rossi led the first 16 laps. Yes, there were a few cautions breaking that up, but he came into the pits on the exact same strategy on that first stint as Newgarden. They came in nose to tail. Rossi was on the reds. Newgarden was on the reds. They both pit. Newgarden comes out in front, and they had both switched to blacks. And then we even saw Ericsson slip in there too. So you've got to not – you can't lose track position. You cannot lose track position at this point in the season in the pits. Andretti did look good. They stepped up. We saw them get 3rd, 4th, and 5th. I think that's something that we weren't really expecting, that we would have been really shocked to see after the first 3-4 races. But I think they're back in a way. I think maybe some of Rossi's focus is back centered. You know, Grosjean knows where Rossi's going. Colton knows where Rossi's going. Maybe that just let everybody focus back up for the rest of the season. But yeah, I don't know what stood out to you in that race, but that was a big one for me, was losing the lead in the pits on the first pit stop.
Yeah, and we are, we know that Team Penske is going to be on top of it. Josef Newgarden was the pit stop champion at the Indianapolis 500 on Carb Day. Even, the 12 crew usually is on it. Sometimes if you're going to say one team of Team Penske that can do some work, but Josef Newgarden, I mean, we keep talking about him. And I really have loved what Ericsson has done, not just winning the Indy 500, right? That's a given. But what he's been able to do, stay consistent. We'll see if he can hang on up there. Alex Palou obviously knows how to win a championship. We'll see if he can make some progress. Will Power is still right there. Pato Award is still right there. I think the top 6 in the championship right now, it's going to be decided between those 6. Rossi has a lot of work to do to overcome those first 2 double-digit finishes that he had. Award's got a lot of work to do as well. As we wrap up Elkart Lake, Wisconsin, Road America, Luke, let's break down real quick. Just go to the teams. Team Penske, Will Power and Newgarden, I give A's to if we're going to give out grades. McLaughlin gets a B-. We really haven't talked about McLaughlin being a factor in a race since the last lap at Texas. And look, yes, he's in his 2nd year. You're going to have some sophomore slumpage. We know that. But he bursted onto the scene in his 2nd year, winning at St. Pete, finishing 2nd and dominating at Texas. And Luke, we haven't heard from him, so I'm going to give him a B-. You get the win, but since then he really hasn't been a factor.
Yeah, he did play a part in that initial pit stop. He kind of blocked Rossi in a little bit. So I don't know if that was a little nice coincidence from Team Penske or not. But yeah, I totally agree. He's been struggling. He had a hard wreck at the 500, and he slid all the way back to 9th in the championship. And he's the last driver that hasn't broke, or he's the first driver in the whole field that hasn't broke 200 points. He's at 199. So just watching him kind of slip back into what you would say mid performance. I'm not sure what's going on with that team. If it's just the focus of we've got two drivers fighting for the championship, Will Power and Newgarden second and third. Does that take some of the attention away? Does that take some of your focus away as a team, as a whole? I would tend to doubt it, because from what I understand, from people that work with Penske and have worked with Penske, is they devote every single guy to a specific team. You don't have like these other teams, people floating back and forth like, yeah, I'm on the 9 crew for Dixon, but I'll go over here if they need a little help this day on Pelot's team.
Yeah.
From what I understand, Penske does not do that. So this is an individual team, an individual performance as a whole team on that McLaughlin crew. I would love to see him get back into the top 5 of the championship, but I would agree the only outsider out of that top 6, Ericsson, Power, Newgarden, Award, Pelot, Dixon. Outside of that, there's only one man that I think could pull something off, and you said it. He's hot right now. Rossi in 7th. He's got 218 points. He's not out of it yet.
Yeah, and he's hungry for a win. He wants to go out as strong as he can with his tenure at Andretti Autosport. As we know, he's going to Arrow McLaren next year. He's got an average finish of 6.3 over his last 6 races. That is the highest among any driver in the field. He had a great month of May, had a great Indianapolis, a podium at Detroit, runner-up at Road America. We'll see if Rossi can stay hot. Let's move over real quick before we talk more Andretti to Chip Ganassi Racing. Marcus Ericsson, A+. Dude wins the 500. Can't give him anything less than that. Pelot, I'm going to give a B+ to, and a lot of that has to do with the bad result there at Road America. But he has been around. He has been challenging at racetracks. Scott Dixon doesn't have a win. I think it's going to come at Mid-Ohio next week. I'm going to call my shot now. Scott Dixon breaks through. If you think about Scott Dixon, if this dude doesn't have a bad month of May, right? Yes, he qualified on the pole, has a bad 500, where really he is dominating the race, and bare minimum is probably going to finish 3rd, probably wins the race.
Yep.
He would be sitting, I believe, if he finished 3rd in that race at the 500, the dude would be like 2nd in the points, and we would just be like, oh, there's Scott Dixon being Scott Dixon. He's going to compete for the championship. We know he's going to get that win. So I'm going to give him a B as well. But, man, I'm just waiting for Dixon to break through and get that win, although he has been there throughout the entire season.
And you're grading as like a season as a whole, correct? Not just last week's performance, like where they sit at the midway point. And I would agree. Dixon is uncharacteristically without a win right now. And that's what comes with being the GOAT. Any other driver, he would be having a great year. His only big misstep, I would say, was that pit road speeding penalty that arguably took away his second Indy 500 winner, at least a chance to fight for it at the end. He definitely had the strongest car from what everybody saw up to that point. Is the grading scale going to be rated on a curve? What do you think is going to happen if we keep seeing this resurgence of Andretti Autosport right now? Colton Herta, we know his style. He's fast, or he's kind of wreckers or checkers. But Rossi is just starting to be old Rossi again. He gets on the podium again. He has a strong finish. He just got snookered by Ericsson at the end. I think if it wasn't for the beginning of the season, similar to what you were saying with Dixon, if Rossi hadn't had just that Andretti luck the first few races, I think you'd see him easily in the top 5.
Yeah, and again, it's going to happen. I think it happens at Mid-Ohio. Dixon's been so good at that racetrack. Ganassi has been so good at that racetrack over the last 10 years, since 2012. So I look for that. All right, Andretti Autosport, it's really been a mixed bag if you think about it. Rossi is on the charge after 2 crap races. Colton Herta wins the rain-soaking race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, but has been battling to stay inside of the top 10 after a terrible Indianapolis 500. Rossi, to me, gets a B. Colton gets a B. Grosjean gets a B-. I think we all kind of expected a little bit more out of him. And I'm going to give Devlin a C. Look, Devlin's learned a lot. You're going to have learning curves. The Texas incident, Elio called him the next day, said, hey, you went for a gap. I understand. I was just frustrated. Him and Will Power get into it a few weeks ago at Road America. I was actually in Devlin's pit. I was just like, all right, I'm going to wait right here after the race. We'll see if Will comes down and says, because Will ran into the grass first. And I was like, well, maybe we'll have a burnout exclusive here of these guys going at it. That didn't. But other than, Devlin, did Devlin punt Will? Yeah. Was it retaliation for being ran off? Yeah. But Devlin kept it clean throughout the month of May. Give him a C. But I think Luke, you would agree with me when I say we expect and should start seeing a lot more out of Andretti over the course of the remainder of the season.
Yeah, and I think you do have to you got to talk that out of Devlin. You've got two guys on your team that have been pissing people off. Grosjean has not only been a little bit lackluster, I think, compared to stepping into the Andretti role from his performance at Dale Coyne. A lot of people hear kind of saying, you know what, would he be better off if he was in Sato's seat? Would he be better off had he stayed in Coyne? I think the other issue is obviously Devlin. What I saw in Road America, I don't know if it was retaliation. I know he got pushed off a little bit, but he tried to make that double move, that fake to the outside and then fake back into the inside, and it wasn't there. So whether that was just a bad mistake, a misjudgment, and you run somebody off the track, a championship contender, you push them into the wall, or if it was retaliation, that's even worse. So that's just something that you're going to have to talk out of your young driver. You don't get to be on a level where you have a multi-year contract deal like Rossi, his teammate, by doing moves like that consistently on all sorts of tracks. So they've had a lot of heat on him, but I think that was a little bit of redemption this past week. We saw the three of them at the end, that last restart, mixing it up together, Colton, Rossi, and Grosjean, and they kept it clean. Race the rest of the field like you race your teammates. You'll be all right.
Yeah, let's move on to a couple other teams real quick. Ed Carpenter Racing as a whole gets a C+ from me. Renus had a really good Alabama. Crashes out of the 500 after starting on the front row. Connor is actually ahead of him in points right now, if not mistaken. Connor is 12th. Renus is 13th. Ed had an okay Texas. He wasn't contending. He had a really bad day at the Indianapolis 500, and it just got worse when the red flag happened. So Ed Carpenter Racing, to me, gets a C+. Really have only contended for one win, and that was Renus down at Alabama. I think Connor is starting to surge a little bit, so maybe we see more out of him. AJ Foyt Racing, to me, D- F, to be honest. Kirkwood's probably just waiting to get to Andretti next year. Arrow McLaren, to me, gets a B+ as a team. Felix is right there. I know everybody's harping on Felix and where's he go, and he's qualifying well, but then he isn't racing well. But he's been good. Pato has a win. Montoya was pretty okay in the month of May. Arrow gets a B+ from me. And I'm going to say this because it's true, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing gets a D- from me. And the only reason why they don't get an F is because they didn't wreck any cars at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They only have a few top 10s. I think Graham has three top 10s, and Christian Lundgaard has 2. Jack Harvey, who I had very high expectations for this year, and I like a great deal and cheer for him, has not been close. Lundgaard's been okay. Graham's been okay. But this team has to be better. This is the team that I'm looking at the remainder of the season going, you better start getting some things worked out, or there's going to start being a lot of questions asked around those teams. Can you challenge for podiums? Hell, can you challenge for top 5s? Graham Rahal makes a statement in April that he's a top 3 driver in the sport. Okay, let's go see it, man. Let's go out there and let's get the results that you say that you can get. And look, I go back to what Simon Pagenaud told me at the tests in April. We're still figuring out. It takes a while to get this chemistry and the camaraderie built up through the team. And I get that you have 2 new teammates, a rookie who hasn't been to a lot of these tracks. Jack Harvey, who has now for the first time in his career is running a full-time schedule. But it's time to go for Rahal. It's time for the entire team, or there's going to be a lot of questions throughout the paddock on what's going on there. Meyer Shank gets a C. They had a really good 500. I thought pretty decent road course at the Speedway. Pagano, obviously the runner-up there.
Yeah.
They've had some speed. They just haven't had results. They've got a lot of work to do. So basically, Luke, with that being said, there's a lot of teams that have there's more teams that have work to do to get to where we think they should be than teams that are actually where we think that they are, which is Penske and Ganassi, which we kind of knew going into this. So your takeaway on the rest of the field and how you see those teams playing out over the remainder of the season.
Well, it's wild because you have a few people that I don't think we would consider to be in the top 10 in the top 10. I don't think people were really looking at Marcus Ericsson after last year, even though they probably should have been with 2 wins and just a solid, consistent performance. But you've got Marcus Ericsson taking up one of those top spots in first place. You've got Felix Rosenqvist, like you said, he's been pretty consistent despite having some bad luck at the Indy GP and colliding with teammates. He's in 8th. McLaughlin, 9th. Yes, you do expect all the Penskes to be in the top 10. But then look at 10th. You do have a Meyer Shank. You have Simon Pagano. So all these guys that are kind of the hype boys of IndyCar, you have your Colton Herta, you have your Roman Grosjean, 11th and 12th in the standings right now, outside looking in. And they're really close to falling into the clutches of Connor Daly. Let's be real. Connor's the leading driver at ECR right now. He's getting more and more consistent. I think he's getting more comfortable in the team, more comfortable in the car. We said at the beginning of the year, this is his first multi-year deal. For the first time in his life, he's not bouncing in between teams. He's not going over here and racing in this car and then bringing a seat over to this other car and working with a different engineer. This is his opportunity to be the top driver in his team, and he's doing it. And he's got a 10-point lead over VK. But yeah, I think seeing some of these heavy hitters like Graham Rahal, he makes a comment like that, and then, good Lord, have you ever had to see somebody eat crow that badly? I just wish he hadn't made that comment. Your team's struggling. It's just, you get further back out of like that kind of 14th through like 18th row, and then it's like, okay, everything makes sense. You got some young drivers, you got some rookies, you got some teams that don't make it to every race. Juncos, okay, that all makes sense. But yeah, I think the biggest surprise out of the top 10 for me, and I know his style, I talk about it all the time, but the biggest surprise in the top 10 or not being in the top 10 would be Colton Herta. I really thought, yeah, he might take himself out of one race, but the Indy 500 double points race, just being in the backup car, I feel like he should be 5th or 6th in the championship.
Yeah, we didn't mention Dale Coyne Racing. I think Malukas has done a good job kind of keeping things clean outside of that accident that he had on Carb Day. Should have been Rookie of the Year at the Indianapolis 500. He wasn't. Jimmy Johnson, I mean, I love the guy to death. It's so cool that he's here. I'm ready to see him on a place like Iowa where he's going to get 2 shots at it. Dale Coyne Racing, Sato as well. Sato, I mean, look, Sato, he's not going to be a guy that's going to contend for wins. He's going to have 4 to 5 good races in the year that he's going to contend for a podium. That's what he's done his entire career. He hasn't been a championship contender his entire career, but he's been good for 4 or 5 races. Usually Portland, he's pretty good. The Indy 500 is really good. Maybe a few other tracks as well. So we are at the halfway point of the season. The Indy Lights Series has been super fun to watch as well. There's been a lot of different winners. Linus Lundqvist leads the points standings as of right now. He's got a couple more wins than everybody else. Christian Rasmussen has a win. Matt Brabham has a win. So we'll see those guys over the next couple weeks. Busy time in IndyCar. We have a test coming up on Thursday. Mid-Ohio comes up next week. Then it's like back to back. You've got Toronto, Iowa, Indy, Nashville. Just a lot of different things going on. Back to that test on Thursday. We'll see Kyle Kirkwood, Alex Palou, Devlin, Rossi, Grosjean, Herta, and Simona. Simona will be there testing her Beretta Autosport entry number 16 with Ed Carpenter. We learned today that Ed Carpenter will stay on the road and street courses, kind of calling her strategy. It's great to see Simona. It was cool to see for the first time. And since I believe 2015, two different women in the field running an IndyCar race. Moments for you so far, Luke. Obviously, the Indy 500 is going to be a huge moment. Josef Newgarden's win at Texas certainly comes to mind as a great moment there. What are some of your favorite moments that we've seen so far here halfway through 2022?
I think the McLaughlin debut win on the first race at St. Pete was really one of the top ones for me. I was really hoping to see him be a championship contender this year. I just love the guy's personality, his swagger. He's just like a perfect spokesperson for the sport, and racing for Team Penske is always cool, especially for these young guys. People forget how young he is and also how accomplished he is in other racing series, granted with Penske. Man, I think this last week, honestly, just excuse me, my light's going a little haywire here. There we go. I think just seeing Rossi kind of turn back into bad boy Rossi is the biggest moment for me. Just seeing him get back on the podium. But I've got to say, Will Power winning at Detroit and then getting taken out this last week. I think we were all on the edge of our seats. Tensions are boiling over, and I'm with you. I thought we were about to see a fight, but just seeing the passion in the cockpit from Will Power, going from redemption at Detroit, I think was huge. But yeah, I think one of the best moments of the year so far, excluding the Indy 500, would be that last lap pass that Newgarden put on his teammate in Texas. That was incredible. And honestly, for me, I know he's been struggling, but a marquee moment is always going to be Jimmy Johnson fighting for that top 5 finish in Texas and kind of shocking everybody.
Yeah, and Jenna Fryer from the AP had a post today talking about Jimmy Johnson and his future in IndyCar and how he doesn't look to get rid of roto street courses next year. Now, I did mention a few weeks ago that maybe that was a possibility. That was me speculating if somebody moves to Ganassi. There's been Pelot's rumors. There's been a BK rumor that I've been told to Chip Ganassi Racing. So Jimmy, as of right now, I mean, look, it made sense, right? Carvana, we don't know what's going on there. Jimmy, my whole thought was, look at what happened in Long Beach. Do you really want to risk a broken hand or, something going wrong that takes you out of an oval race or takes you out of the Indianapolis 500? But, as of right now, what he said today was that's not in the cards. That hasn't been talked about. So that's not going to happen as of right now. But look, here's what I'll say about silly season. There's going to be 3 or 4 different rumors that you hear. One's going to be right. 3's going to be wrong. Doesn't mean the 3 that are wrong were wrong at one point. These things change so much. We'll really kind of start seeing where things shake up towards mid-July and early August when it comes to silly season and what the field in 2023 will look like. I know you didn't catch it, Luke, but SRX on Saturday night, whenever Helio Castroneves wins a race, man, he just has the absolute exuberance that you love to see. Doesn't matter if he's winning the Indianapolis 500 or if he's winning an XRS race in Five Flags Raceway down in Sarasota, Florida. He's going to go for it, climb that fence. So that was certainly exciting. And we had Ellen Beswick on here on Burnout Sports, burnoutsports.com. So make sure you check that out as well. But always good to see Helio Castroneves win a race.
Yeah, I mean, if it tells you anything about the hype that goes around Elio, I didn't even get a chance to watch the race this weekend, but I did see, I don't know, like 15, 20 clips within an hour flying everywhere on social media of him climbing the fence. Saw a couple NASCAR legends, obviously, were in that race. Bobby Labonte, who is out and somewhat involved in the IndyCar sphere a little bit with some PR, some promotional stuff. With McLaren, he was racing in it. Always good to see either of the Labonte brothers out there. That's just that's my childhood right there. I'm sure you identify with that, Tony. But yeah, it's just good to see Elio just jumping into something that's not Helio Castroneves. It's basically it's a tube frame stock car deal, and he's out there rubbing fenders with people. So as soon as we get off here, I'm going to go watch the highlights from that race for sure.
Well, I won't spoil it too much, but Tony Kanaan was up there as well, and I think it's a great pub for IndyCar and the series. They talk about being the most competitive series in the world, which I think they are. The diversity of the sport, the drivers, and I talked to Alan Bestwick about this yesterday. There always seems to be this rivalry sometimes of, well, IndyCar drivers struggle when they go to run NASCAR, but we could probably see a NASCAR driver come over and run IndyCar and finish well. We obviously saw that with Kurt Busch at the Indianapolis 500 back in 2014. But with that being said, it was fun. Look, it's short track Saturday night. It doesn't matter if you're diehard IndyCar or USAC racing. You love a good short track Saturday night show. That's exactly what it was. Connor Daly, our guy, was in the booth. He had some pretty hilarious comments. He's going to be great in the booth one day. Hopefully that day doesn't come anytime soon, and he can continue his driving career in IndyCar. Obviously, he's locked up next year as well. But certainly a lot of fun to watch. And again, it's great pub for IndyCar. I didn't see if IndyCar had any tweets about it. I'm sure that they did. But when you're one of your most popular drivers wins any other race, you're going to celebrate that as an IndyCar fan. So looking forward to that. Again, we'll have you covered here on Burnout Sports, burnoutsports.com. We've got a test on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and then Mid-Ohio next week. Luke will be there. I should be there. Should be a great race. I do love Mid-Ohio, the access you get, being able to check that out. So if you see us out there, say hello. Because it's going to be a great race. And again, it's all championship from here on out, right? You love to win races, but you've got to be able to stay up front because the competition level is so much that, you get banged off like Alex Palou did by his teammate or Will Power gets dumped. It almost could take you out of it. One race right now could take you out of the championship. And you look, Luke, at the championship and the guys up front, everybody's going to have two races where they finish outside of the top 15, right? There's a lot of guys that have already had those two races. So it's going to be interesting from here on out to watch as well. Luke, what you guys got out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum for people to check out here over the next couple of weeks?
So we still have our 3 exhibits open, 3 different exhibits. We have In Focus. That is going away soon. That's the story, the behind the scenes of the photographers of IMS Photo. So they curated that. Essentially, they picked their own photos. So that is up through about mid-July. So catch that if you haven't yet. And then that's getting replaced with a helmet art exhibit. So I'll be sure to let you guys know when that's closer to opening, but that's going to be near the end of July. We still have Roadsters to Records, that story of how we went from front engine cars to rear engine to wings and 19-mile-an-hour speed jump in 1972. Of course, we have our winners collection. Be sure to continue not only to follow Burnout Sports, but our friends at the museum, IMS Museum. We have a very good social media bond between everybody. So we share each other's content. So be sure to follow us. We're going to start highlighting some of our winners collection as well. We don't want to forget about those 34, 35 cars that we have circulating on the winners floor. And then, of course, traditions, which I'm looking forward to some traditional Mid-Ohio fandom coming up. I've never experienced the track. I'm going with my buddy Jake, and obviously it sounds like we're all going to be there, the Indy boys included. So our plan is to do the lawn chairs and find a hillside. Now, I don't know what you recommend, but I know we've got passes everywhere, but that's what I've heard is the best thing to do for the race is just bring that lawn chair over your back and a cooler and set up camp somewhere. Yeah,
I've been twice, and we kind of did that. We would watch it. We always watch the race in you got the keyhole, you come down that long straightaway, and then it's a quick right down. So we always watch the race, the start of the race there, then kind of move around. And we actually did find a nice little hillside when Graham Rahal won back in the Steak and Shake car a few years ago. So, yeah, we'll definitely take some bag chairs. We'll do a lot of walking around. Man, I think I probably walked literally 10 miles each day, Saturday and Sunday at Road America, which was – I didn't even think about it. It was just awesome because you were kind of following the cars around the track, and that's what's cool about a road course race is you don't have to sit in the same spot and you can move around and see different areas of the racetrack. All right, put you on the spot here. I posted this earlier today. Supposedly it's National Selfie Day. I mean, every day it seems to be some kind of new national something. I posted one with Pagano, one with Elio, and then one with the Marmon Wasp that I think I snuck away and took while you were in the other room at the museum a few weeks ago. Last driver you took a selfie with, if you have at all. I don't know if I like to do pictures with drivers. I think it's great for social media. But the last driver you took a selfie with.
Man, I don't think I've ever taken a selfie. I've always had like Steve Shunk or somebody throw me and say, "All right, hey, go stand by Mario." Yeah, so I'll have to dig around. If I find one, I'll definitely post it on Twitter. I'll tag Burnout Sports and we can throw it up there.
So here's what we'll do. If not, at Mid-Ohio, what we're going to do is I'm just going to come up with a random number, right? Let's say 17th. And whoever qualifies 17th, your goal race day is to go could be anybody, right? Could be anybody. Could be any of the drivers. Get a selfie with them. If Steve Shunk's watching, he's got to send a picture of us at the museum when we were sitting there back in March with David Land there as well. Because I know he took one of us in his digital camera, but I never saw it. All right, Luke, great stuff. Appreciate you joining us. I know it's we're kind of in that weird period where there's a little bit of a break. It's not as bad as the break last year with the Olympics, but a little bit of a break here. So we will see you at Mid-Ohio. Looking forward to this championship continuing on. Follow us on our social media channels. You see them here at Burnout Sports, at Burnout Bets. Like us on Instagram as well. Subscribe on YouTube, and we will keep pumping out this content for you. Thanks so much for supporting us. For Jared Sparkman, I'm Tony Donahue. That's Luke Edwards. Again, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you after Mid-Ohio.